Sometimes I feel like I can change everything. If you don't know where you from, how you gonna know how far you came? If you don't know yourself, then they can tell you anything. I just wanna see you smile because I know you feeling pain. You trying to stop the game, better luck stopping the train.
Welcome back, Better Investors, to another episode of The Breakdown here on the BI Academy channel. And we're going to be talking about how you can take yourself from a paycheck, if you're just a regular employee, to actually having net worth. So we're going to do a step-by-step. You see here on the screen, we have it where you have your paycheck getting paid to you, whether it's direct deposit or however it comes to you. What are you going to do with that? What are you doing with your paycheck on payday? Okay, let's focus in on that and understand where are we going wrong when we get our money that is messing us up. You know, it's preventing us from getting to where we want to go. We need to have a plan for our dollars. So here's a plan that I drew up, and this is how I got ahead in life. All right. So when I got a paycheck, I divided it into categories of what I wanted to accomplish. I know that I need cash flow. So cash flow is what actually gives you financial freedom. It's when you can afford to pay your bills or your living expenses using residual or passive income. We have capital. So most people know capital as just being money that you can have to make investments. And that's very much true. But here, when I'm saying capital, I'm talking about capital gains, things that we can put money into, like an investment that is going to increase in price over time, thereby doubling, tripling, or even more of a gain on our money over time without us actually having to do anything. All right, so we just choose a good investment, whether it's a stock, cryptocurrency. We want to have a nice fundamental basis for why we bought this particular item or entity, and then from there, it's going to increase in price over time, thereby growing our wealth for us. And then savings. So savings, I want to be able to save money and have it fight against inflation at the same time. So remember, Robert Kiyosaki, one of the major lessons that he says is the rich don't work for money and savers are losers. Okay, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. So he was saying savers are losers. And what did he mean by that? He meant that the dollar is decreasing very rapidly against hard assets and things that have a limited supply. Okay, so if you think about what's appealing about Bitcoin, limited supply. What's appealing about Jordans when they first come out, limited supply. What's appealing about food and water, and the background of economics in itself is scarcity. All right. It's that everything that we want and really need is scarce. And so the first lesson, as Thomas Sowell would say, a really, really great economist, he says the first lesson of economics is scarcity. So what are we wanting to do? We're wanting to buy assets just like the rich and the wealthy do before they actually increase in price, because inflation, the increase of the dollar, the circulating supply that is of the dollar, causes the price of these things to go up over time. Meanwhile, the value of the dollar goes down. So when we look at it here, we want the cash flow and the capital to go into things that are assets. Okay, assets put money into our pocket, liabilities take money out of our pocket. So there's three different type of assets in terms of category. We have physical, digital, and also paper assets. So if you're looking at the screen now, you're going to see crypto, websites, channels, and ebooks. Those will be classified as digital assets. Obviously, they're going to be cyber online. Here's some physical assets. Metals, being precious metals like gold and silver, even platinum, uranium. Those are also metals that can be looked at as how, holding value, and they're going to go up in price over time against the dollar. Actually, copper was one of the most highly performing assets over the last 2 years. All right. That also, too, of course, is a metal. Food and water. These are physical things that are also limited in supply, and they're going to be scarce. No need to go over that. Right. We know that food, good quality food, that is, it comes in short supply, and you're going to have to pay more for it versus, let's say, fast food or junk food. Now, land. We also know that there's only a certain amount of land, and the only way new land is created is, let's say, a volcano, and it cools over time, and that takes a lot of time for that to actually happen, for new land to be created. So once again, it's limited in supply, and therefore it gives it scarcity, because a lot of people wish they could own land or have land. But obviously land is limited in supply, and you have to pay taxes and other things like that. and be able to maintain it. And so therefore it is very high in price, and not a lot of people actually own land. So equipment, this could be things like bulldozers, tractors, lawnmowers, tools and objects that make our everyday life easier. When these things first came out, they were only for the richer and upper class individuals. A lot of people still had to do things by hand because they could not afford to make their life easier. So whenever something makes your life more convenient, obviously you're going to have to pay more for it as well. Think about like a phone. The newer smartphones, when they first came out, cost a lot more than the flip phones because they made your life easier. All right. And also too, it takes time to create those different machineries and equipments, and therefore being limited in supply because they have to get made over time, and it takes time to make that. Okay. So it's going to take some time for them to actually put that product out. Insurance, stocks, and bonds. All right. So these are paper assets. These are things that, like, contracts that make us wealthy over time, because if I have, like, for an example, a whole life insurance contract, well, it's guaranteeing to pay my family all the money that I put in back out plus interest. Okay. So this is a paper asset because this is going to be denominated in dollars, and primarily most of the time it's going to be looked at as a contract when you were talking about paper assets. So diving a little bit more into these assets, you'll see here net worth equals assets minus expenses. So what are the current value of our assets, even if the market's going up and down, minus our reoccurring expenses. And once again, it just has the same assets listed out again, except they're not divided in, by it's not specifying digital, paper, or physical. But if we look at all these different assets, I'm sure you at home, you're looking and saying, well, there's some assets missing off this list. And you would be absolutely correct. There's more assets available than just what's being shown. These are just some examples of assets. And what do assets do? They put money in our pocket, and liabilities take money out of our pocket. So we have the ability to make a paycheck. What we do then with the cash is going to determine the outcome of our lives financially. If we start to use that to buy assets, and we make a plan to buy more and more assets over time, those assets will then start to produce income, thereby allowing us to work less going into the future. So here is a breakdown of what it looks like to diversify your portfolio. We want to break it down into different categories. So what it used to be is that cash, stocks, and bonds, that was what people knew to have inside their portfolio. That is what the government was telling everybody. That's what we learned in school. If you learned anything about money, was that you wanted to have stocks, you wanted to have cash, you wanted to have bonds. Since then, with the new increase in technology and new age developments, we have a lot more assets that we can invest our money into. We can put our cash into different things, different vehicles that'll take us further. And we've learned that in reality, whether it's stocks, cash, or bonds, once you get your financial education at a higher level, you understand that you're actually invested all into the same thing. Those are all paper assets, meaning that they're denominated in the dollar, and you're going to be receiving dollars in exchange for those at any point in time. Meanwhile, when you have an asset, it can give you cash flow that might be dollars, or it could exchange for something else of value. For an example, cryptocurrency, I could exchange Bitcoin for XRP for Ethereum, or simply take that digital asset and exchange it directly for something else that I would like to have. All right, being a house, a car, or something like that of that nature. So Tesla was accepting Bitcoin at one point in time, and also too, for settlement of transactions, right now you could buy real estate in Dubai using XRP. So that is an asset being directly exchanged for another asset, and that's why crypto is looked at as the internet of value. Before we get to the end of this video, I wanted to take a look at the dollar and really hone in on the fact that you have to get those dollars working just as hard for you as you do for it, okay? So what we see here is with the Federal Reserve Act and the creation of the Federal Reserve back in the early 1900s. What did this cause? This meant that the currency can now be manipulated, and more importantly, it could be essentially counterfeited by a private banking corporation that is not actually a part of the U.S. government and the people, the democracy of the United States. We don't have any control over that. Now, if you really do a little history and dig in, you know that we're no longer a democracy, and it hasn't been that way for a while. We're actually a republic. But what this chart is showing you is how the dollar has decreased over time, since the inception of the Fed itself, so the Federal Reserve, which is the Central Bank of America. Then it looks at, what's going off the gold standard. All right, quantitative easing, which is the electronic implementation of more currency being injected into the economy using computers. And what we'll see is it also shows from there just how the U.S. money supply, which is actually the currency supply. So it is the difference between currency and money, and I have a video on that. So make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like this video, leave a comment for more stuff that you might want to see on this channel, and check out that video, money versus currency. But it says the U.S. money supply grew, and it's showing you that that is just another form of quantitative easing, except it's the actual physical form. Once those dollars have made it into the economy and me and you and everybody else are now spending those, it decreases and devalues the value of the dollar again. Okay, so we want to do something with these dollars that can increase our wealth and not decrease our wealth by us simply holding dollars. Now, guys, I hope you learned something from this video. Leave a like, subscribe, comment, and more importantly, share this information with somebody else that could use it. Until next time, guys, better investments equal a better future, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
You trying to stop the game, better luck stopping the train. This nation ain't free, they just took away the chains. I still see the sunshine standing in the rain. Reach for higher heights, you focus and elevate. Sometimes I feel like I can change everything.